American way, and we built this country called the USA, and we fly our flag cause we're proud and free, we're Americans. Red, white, and blue is our way of life. Never back down from a challenge or a fight. Nature provides, God gives the rights, we're Americans. We make up America, it's amazing America. Oh, yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Sergeant Frank Show. And tonight joining us is obviously always the incredible, undisputable, fantastic Danny the Bird Dog Griswold.
Whoa, that was a heck of an introduction.
I've been practicing all week.
I feel
And
special.
our other guest, you are special. That's what they told you in school. And our other guest is an incredible human being, a fantastic hunter, a humanitarian, a construction man, guru of all types of talents. His name is Ryan Green.
Like the color?
Like the color.
All right.
Well, welcome to the show, Ryan. And I have to tell you, I haven't had the opportunity to sit down and hunt with you, but I doubt we would kill anything because neither one of us could shut up for that long.
That's probably true.
But Ryan, when I first, it took us a while to get kind of acquainted and I could understand your whole background, but you are obviously big into hunting and fishing. And where did that come from?
Well, it started when I was a child. My grandfather and my dad and my two older brothers, they were around before I was, and they had gotten started back, I think, in they would go to the Ocala forest and go hunting, and they did a lot of hunting with dogs and stuff when they first kind of started. And when I came along, they just kind of introduced me to it, and I fell in love with it, and it was just fun times and good stories, and just good experience to get out there and just kind of enjoy family and learning something and doing something like that. And it was just a really good experience and kind of brought the family close together, different times of the year, and so that's just kind of how I got my start.
How did that shape you into the man that you became today?
Well, it taught me a lot of different things. There's one of the things that's kind of jumping out is we had guns, and so there was a lot of lessons on gun safety and respect and awareness of people around you. And when you're in the world, you kind of do the same thing. You have respect for people around you and awareness of what's going on, and that was a big part. And then I remember it took me years before my dad would allow me to go hunting, around the next bend where he couldn't see me anymore. It took a long time for him to wait to see if I was ready for that trust to be gained and earned. And that's the same thing like in life. I just knew that there were going to be things that I was going to do that I was going to have to earn this trust and earn this respect. And so it just kind of all segued into the same thing. And by learning from my parents and especially my dad was probably the one I primarily hunted with the most. He would take the time and teach me these things and go over them and explain why we do this. And I would say that was probably one of the biggest parts of growing into manhood, was just knowing that what I'm doing is going to affect other people, good or bad. And just like out in the hunting woods, just paying attention and learning these things. And it didn't happen overnight. It was something that took time, but eventually I got my own deer stand and I got my own gun, and so I moved up and out of that, and now I have the opportunity to teach my kids the same exact thing.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you if you had, if you were married with kids or what the story was there. So, how old are your kids? Are they old enough to start doing that yet, or?
Well, I've been married now. Actually, March 10th was 12 years for my wife and I, and
Awesome.
I have three kids. I have an 8-year-old daughter who is right now is the time that I remember, getting a BB gun and starting to learn, gun safety and being able to handle it and that kind of stuff with parent supervision. And then I have a 4-year-old son who, if I gave him a gun today, he'd be all about it. Anything he picks up is a gun. It's a stick.
True.
It could be a straw. It doesn't matter what it is. And then I got a 3-month-old son also. So yeah, they're all itching to get to the woods and ride 4-wheelers and do all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're in the thick of it now. Just getting them out there in the wild, letting them be kids.
Well, I'm hoping that we can be part of that out there in the woods with you and your family to show other Americans how important it is and how much the outdoors can bring a family together.
Yeah, absolutely. We about 3 years ago we invested in a camper, and that's kind of what we do on some of our vacations. Is we will go with other families, young families like ourselves, and go around, North Florida and just kind of, be outside, disconnect, get away from the devices and stuff like that and distractions, and just, it just brings you closer together as a family and even with your friends,
Yeah.
so definitely something that I encourage.
Yeah, camping's
Let's
something that I've done with my family every single year. We do a camping trip at the same time every year. My kids are all older now. My youngest is 22 and she has her own baby, so I have a grandchild, but they all loved the camping and so much that, now that some of my kids have families, they take, that they're all about camping with their families too. So it's pretty awesome.
Oh
So
yeah.
what kind of influence do you think that means to a family when you can disconnect from the world and reconnect with the people that mean the world to you?
you know it's like one of these things where the kids actually look forward to these times where we go off together, and it's not like we're doing anything crazy out there. It's not like going to Disney World or something like that. We're just going out as a family, and we're playing board games, and we're just talking. We're having real conversation. It's the time where you actually get some growth, and really it's where you bond with the people that you love the most, because you're setting personal time aside that is allotted just for that. You're making deposits into your kid's life, and they're making deposits into your life, and you're getting to know that person, even though you live the day to day with them, in the house. Just getting outside of that familiarity of just the daily routine, getting outside of that and going somewhere and being able to have that intimate, time with that person or those people. That's really what shapes those those times and those bonds together, that you'll look back, years from now. We've all, we all have those. I know Frank and you guys both have that, those same kind of experiences with other people, other family members too. I remember, going out with my cousins and stuff like that, and just now I reflect on those times, and I just, it's just special memories that you'll always have.
Well, this is exactly why we started the Outdoor Crusaders program within Adopt a Cop USA, because we want to get people back to doing that. And some people don't have time. Maybe they don't think they can make time. So when we do things in the outdoor, everything we do with kids in the outdoors, whether it's fishing, hunting, camping, whatever we're going to do, we make sure that a parent or a guardian or somebody goes with them so they can get that bond as well. But I mean, we started, the program was mainly in schools, and it's still, main focus is schools and getting to the kids in the schools. But I think when we opened up the Outdoor Crusaders part of this, it just opened up a whole new world, and everything that you just said is exactly what's why we're doing it.
Well, Ryan, I want to go back way back when you were just a itty bitty tiny baby. And I want you to tell us that incredible story that you told me that one time.
Yeah. So, everybody has a story. Everybody, you know, has something they've come out of. And I have my own story. It's unique to me. And what I had shared with Sergeant Frank, I don't know, it was probably a year ago now, and we had talked about doing a podcast at some point, and here we are doing it. But the story goes is that um, when I was roughly around 18 months old, I was abandoned. I was left in a house by myself for 5 days. That means that there was nobody checking in on me. There was no parent coming by or any family member. No one knew I was in this house, uh, which means that I wasn't getting fed properly. I wasn't getting water. I don't even know where I was using the bathroom at. The kind
In
of
your
stuff. It was
pants.
pro- probably filled those up pretty quick. Um, and my mother, my biological mother, she was strung out on drugs, and she also was doing prostitution too. So somewhere between those activities, she got sidetracked and just forgot about the child at the house. Well, 5 days later, I'm screaming, and there was a man next door that was working on a house, and he heard this child screaming, called the cops because several hours had been going by, and he knew something was wrong. They came in, knocked the door down, pulled me out, and they said I wouldn't have made it another night. Well, I I immediately went into foster care, was in the system, and I was there for several months. And in that time, back in this was about 80, 88, 89, somewhere right around there, um, the foster care parents were allowed to smoke inside their homes. Well, these particular people would do that, and one of the little boys in this foster care uh, house, he died right there with secondhand smoke. So
Wow.
two of the children were were taken out by HRS. I was one of the boys. Now, my parents were going to a church down in Winter Haven called Cypress Cathedral at the time. And my parents had already had two older sons that were their biological children. One of them just started college, and the other one was 16 years old. So they were pretty much done with having kids, except for my mom really wanted to adopt these two girls. So they adopted these two girls, and they were done. They were not interested in having any more kids after that. Well, they were in a class that night, and they were teaching them how to raise adopted children. Well, the head lady at HRS, she also went to that church, and she knew my parents were in that class that night. So she pulled them out and another family out and presented these two boys, told them the situation, told them what was going on. And at that time, my parents took me home to the house, and I stayed there that night. They cleaned me up, washed my hair, took care of me, fed me, that kind of stuff. And in that process, my mom apparently told my dad she wasn't giving me back. So uh, I I like to tell people it's the world's longest sleepover because after that I didn't go anywhere else. But yeah, so I was adopted shortly after that, and then we ended up moving to Providence, which is Union County, uh, not too long after I was adopted, and my dad, wanted to put us somewhere where it was, we had some property. He had bought 40 acres, and man, that was my playground. That's where I grew up on that 40 acres and in those woods. So gave us a good life and went to a good school, and and then I just went on from there.
Now you have a different. You were talking about the other day the rights of adopted children, and I thought it was extremely. I had never heard this before. I was only a police officer for 24 years, military for 4 years, 28 years of law enforcement service to our country and the community, and I never heard this before. Can you please share with our listeners the whole thing about the adoption process or the rights of an adopted child in America?
Right, right. So it actually goes back to Roman times. And what the Romans would do is they had their own children. They would also adopt children. And adopted children actually have a higher rank in the family than the child that is born of their own blood. And the reason why is because the parents actually got to choose the child. And the only thing that a birth child has is in today in America is a birth certificate, which basically gives their name and where they were born and that kind of stuff. Well, adopted child actually has to go before a judge, and there's a judge that sits there and is standing with the parents, and the parents basically uh, are saying to the judge that we accept this child to be our own, and he's taking or she's taking our last name. Well, once that process happens, you cannot take an adopted child and disown them. It's 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 a law. It's set in stone, meaning that it's irreversible what just happened. And not that my parents were looking for a loophole or anything like that, but it's amazing because my last name is Green. I am more of a Green than my two brothers that were born into the same family because of the adoption, because of the paper, because of the judge that gave power of attorney to my parents for me. And so that's the really cool thing about adopted kids, is that if they're adopted into a family, they're more that family than the family is, and it's really really cool when you look at it that way because growing up, you know, adopted kids would, like myself, you kind of pick them out in the crowd type thing, and so you would think that you would be isolated and it would be awkward and weird and tough for you to grow up in, and that kind of stuff happens. But knowing that my position with my family, uh, that I was in a place where you know I had more right than anybody else, and I didn't look at it like that ever. I just knew that I was treated the same as everyone else, um, and that was probably something that made a huge impact in my own life. Is that I never felt like I was different in the sense that I was adopted. I'm not really part of this family, and I've never been treated that way. Uh, so, um, just the whole thing about the adoption and where I come from, and if you look in the Bible, there was great men that were adopted that God used, and one of them comes to mind is Moses. Moses was adopted, and the same kind of thing, and it's just really really cool. And the Bible also talks about adoption or sonship. That's actually the same word, and they use that in the Bible to teach the Romans that salvation is the same thing as adoption. It's a parallel between the two, and God would use that because every person is born into sin, and then they once they accept Christ as their Lord and Savior, there's an adoption that happens. And what's really really cool about that is that old last name, that old thing that was attached, that old family you were attached to, in this case it would be sin. You are no longer attached to that anymore because you have a new last name. You belong to a new family. You're part of a different kingdom. And so the same thing with me. I'm no longer attached to my biological mother's, whatever she had going on and her debt. That's the other thing, is that all debt is completely, the slate is cleared. If there was an adopted child who their biological father, owed a lot of money to, it wouldn't matter, because once he's adopted or she's adopted, that debt is completely wiped clean. And whatever the family has, the adopted family has, now that's part of my inheritance, and I have more right to that inheritance than the biological child that is born in that same family. And the Romans would do the same thing, where when they would give out their gifts or their blessings, the adopted child would actually get more than the biological children. And it was actually an honor, and it was a certain prestige that they had, uh, as an adopted child would get these different things. It was considered an honor to be adopted, because the way they looked at it was, whenever you have a child, it's kind of like a roll of the dice. Whenever you choose a child, you're picking everything about that child that you want: their eye color, their their hair, their skin tone, the size of the child, the sex of the child. Like, everything is so, it's handpicked. And so that's why it's so cool to know that, being adopted is not something that's just by choice or by circumstance. It's actually something that's happened because somebody actually wants you. And so I think that's probably the biggest thing, is that people need to understand that they actually have a value, that they are worth something. And so, if I could say anything to anybody who's listening to this, is that you are valued, you're very special, and you are worth a lot. So, you know,
That's so incredible, brother, man. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you sharing that with our listeners, because I think a lot of adopted children in our country feel that they're thrown away, that the parents didn't want them, this, that, and the other. And you put it in such an eloquent way, and a biblical way, to show these kids how much, and adults, because that guilt continues into adulthood. I think that's a fantastic and beautiful thing that you just shared with us. What do you have to say about that, Bird Dog?
Oh, I was very impressed. I mean, to hear that. I mean, I guess in a way I was adopted, but I was with. I guess I wouldn't be fully adopted because my mother was still there, but my name wasn't always Griswold. I had my name legally changed as well. But my dad had to do the same thing because my real dad, he died when I was like 3 years old of cancer. So I never really knew him. And then when I was like 15 or 16, my mother asked me and my sister if we wanted to change names, and of course I was all about it because I didn't know my real dad.
I think
yeah,
that's incredible. And just the miracle of, just being born today, Ryan. I think it's really important that there's so many people out there that don't see the value of their lives, and don't take advantage of the fact that just to be on this planet is such a miracle from God. Because just to get here, I mean, so many of our young people and adults are throwing their lives away, and it's such a, it's such a tragedy, and a sin against God. But you know, I really don't think I think part of that reason is they don't have that structure. And we talked about this in our last podcast, is a lot of people have lost the faith, in the higher authority, in God. And I think the biggest problem is our kids are struggling and, desiring that structure that they're not getting anywhere else. And I think as parents, we need to take the responsibility to bring that information to our children, and give them the choice to make, to read this information, to learn the information, and to live the information. And I said this last week, and I believe it still today, that the word Bible stands for basic instructions before leaving Earth.
yeah. To me, I always have looked at the Bible as like my true north, or my moral compass. And so, and that's what I was. The country was birthed out of biblical truths, and my life. I can say I can't speak for anybody else, but I can say that in my life that, I was everything that happened to me, getting me out of the situation I was because of prayer and because of people that actually believe in the Word of God, and that helped me get to where I am today. And I thank God for it, and I thank God for people who stuck with it, that have a stick to itiveness to not just give up and just keep on keeping on, and stepping out there, when others wouldn't, and so that's been a huge mark in my life to do the same thing, and pay
And
back.
that kind of segues us into the next portion of what I wanted to discuss with you tonight was that giving nature that's in your DNA. Because we met one morning, and I hate to admit this, but we met one morning and I was having biscuits and gravy because I'd like the world to know that I eat very healthy, but I couldn't resist biscuits and gravy this one morning, and you joined me for breakfast, and you made this thing, you made a very generous donation to our program, and it really, in fact, I actually called the bird dog after this, just to let you know, and because I had to share this with somebody, this incredible generosity for somebody. And I know you work really hard for your money, and it's not easy today in your line of business, and we're going to get to that next. But I really wanted to ask you, why did you donate that hard-earned currency to our program?
you know there there's always opportunities to make a decision, um and I, I've known about this program that you've started and carried on your back, and with the help of other people, coming around you and supporting you. It's funny because that morning I was actually supposed to be hunting in the woods, and um, I just it was all me. I should have prepared more, and I didn't. So where I was at was not a good spot. And for some reason, I remember I texted you because I was trying to get into the bunkhouse. Well, for some reason, the day before, I got out money out of ATM, just cash, just got it out. I'm going hunting. There's nowhere in Mayo, Florida, to spend money in the woods, you know. Uh,
Right.
but I was just impressed. The Lord kind of impressed me to get some money out and keep it on me. And I'll do this from time to time. It's not something I do every day, but I'll do that. And I know that that money's not mine. I know that that money that I have in my wallet, even though I earned it, He gave me the breath and the strong back to go out and get it. So I know where it comes from, but I knew that that money was for a purpose, and that was for somebody. I didn't know who it was, and so I go hunting. All right, I made my attempt, and then I, you know, met up with you that morning, and we were talking, and you were doing, you were going to do you did the whole bread truck thing, and
Oh,
actually
that's right. That's right. That was the day I taped that. That's right.
you were actually talking about, getting some funds and that kind of stuff, and that's not why I did it, but just hearing you talk about it, and I started thinking back, and I was trying to remember, have I done anything? And we had talked about, I don't know if you still do it or not, but um, I get a lot of stuff off Amazon. In my business, I need bulk blades and that kind of stuff, so it's just easier. There's nowhere around to just buy that kind of stuff, so I'll buy it off there. Well, I had attached your organization to that so that you would start getting some of the proceeds. And
Right. Yeah. The Amazon smiles. You're right.
yeah. So I knew that I was contributing in some way, but I wanted it to be something that you knew I was I was doing right then. Like it wasn't just talk anymore; it was walking the walk. And so I gave you what we call the old Pentecostal handshake, and had the money in my hand. And so just gave it to you real quick, and I didn't ask for a receipt for my tax write off and all that, because it's not about that for me. I don't even care about that. But I was just impressed, to do that. I knew once we met up and started, breaking bread together and eating breakfast, that that's who that money was going to, and I was just waiting for the right opportunity to do that. Uh, Little did I know, because you didn't tell me till later, that that was huge for you, and so I'm just glad that I was at the right place at the right time, and just doing my little part to help you and help further the cause. Because I really do believe that what you guys are doing, is a very it's very needed. It's very special, and I appreciate it because I know I don't have that particular gift. I love giving. I'm also in a point in my life where I'm not retired yet, so I have to keep working. And Frank, you get to go visit.
Right. Well, I have to tell you, yes, I used to work 14 days a month as a police sergeant, and now I work 30 days a month as a retired police sergeant. So I don't think I'm doing this the right way, but I have to tell you, when you were talking about bringing people around that really make this program work, if it weren't for the bird dog, dude, I'm gonna tell you right now, Sergeant Frank would have tanked because I was at that point. I was at the breaking point. And, when you're a police officer, you're a police sergeant, you're out there doing the job, every once in a while, we get into a situation where we need backup. And I got on the phone, not the radio. I got on the phone and I was like, man, bird dog, I need backup. And just like in the 25 years that I worked with him, he was there. And not just for me, but for these children and these parents and the people that left you in that house. That happened because that there was a godlessness in that situation, and God came into your life and saved you. And you know what? That's something that the bird dog did for us, and we're doing every day for these kids.
Well, I appreciate that. I don't think I've ever made anybody choke up like that before.
Well, you
but,
took my
but I
French class
certainly
one day, and that,
appreciate the
that
kind
choked me up
words.
too. So I'll just say that.
No, that's awesome. Sergeant Frank, says a lot of good things about me and everything, and I appreciate it. But he's the one that is the heart and soul behind this whole program. And if it, he's got his gift, and I do my behind the scenes things, and his gift is that he can talk to anybody, anytime, anywhere. It doesn't matter. I mean, he'll go out for a gallon of milk and he'll come back 2 hours later because he had to talk to everybody. But I mean, if you listen to what he has to say and you see what his vision is for this program, I think that he's the one that deserves all the kudos.
I tell everybody, I'm just a little cog in the wheel, and it's the big tires like the bird dog and Ryan Green that move this program forward, because we need to find more Americans like you guys to help us put the United back in the United States. And it's the business owners like Mr. Green here that does more than talk about, because we talk to thousands of people and they're all like, that's great, what a great idea. And I'm like, it's kind of like going to Publix when I they're like, man, that's so great what you're doing, but you know what, when I put my food up on the conveyor belt, they don't care how good the things you're doing. They still want that other thing before you can leave the store with those items, and that's the funding. And this thing, unfortunately, there's no free lunch. And for the police officers and deputies out there listening, this program was built to help save your life. It might not be today or tomorrow, but someday down the road, one of these children that we're influencing through this broadcast and many more to come is something that's going to help you, or it could be your own family that you're helping. And the Americans out there that are listening the same way. We had a serious talk about some of the raffles that we do, and part of what we do is to help instill the responsibility and accountability in our children to make the right choices. And that's why we need your help. And that's why when somebody like Ryan Green makes a donation, I want to elevate that man because he didn't have to do that. He took money out of his hard-earned wallet. He if you've ever worked in South Florida, and I know Bird Dog has done a lot of construction jobs. In fact, he helped me do some construction jobs. So I can tell you, it's not an easy business, and every dollar that he earns is hard earned. And to get a donation from a man who puts that kind of work every day, I mean, it goes a long way with us, and we'll do everything we can to help him and his family move forward.
No, I agree with everything you said, and I'm glad that you asked me to come and help you because I wasn't doing too much either. I retired and I was getting lazy, and it's funny because when you're working all the time, and let me tell you, when I was working as a police officer, I was a traffic homicide investigator, which meant I was on call all the time. But not only was I on call, I was a motor guy, so I had to do a lot of special details with that. So I worked a ton, and I always got things done, whenever I had a couple of seconds to get in there and get it done. But when you're retired, you would think you would get everything done, and you probably could. But I would. My personal experience was, oh, I can do that later. And I kept saying that, and I kept saying that, and I kept saying that. It took me 6 months to get something done that I would have done, in that day if I was working because I would squeeze it in. So it's kind of weird, but I enjoy this tremendously. Just to see the look on the kids' faces and everything that we do when we go into schools, when we take them outdoors, it's amazing, and it really it makes your day. I mean, it just makes you feel
Well,
good
Mr.
inside.
Green, I know that you have your own business. Can you share with our listeners, especially up here in the Gaines? I don't know what area you serve. I know you're in Alachua, Gainesville, St. Augustine. I don't know what kind of reach you have with your business, but could you share with our listeners up here in North Florida how they could get a hold of you and how they could partake in some of the incredible. Um, Tell them exactly what you do for a living.
Yeah, so my company's name, is Green's Home Improvement, and I use that name because, like I told you before, it just means so much to me. It was something that was given to me, and I really enjoy working outside. It's just it's part of who I am and what I grew up in, and it goes all the way back to hunting in the woods. I like my office outside, and so I love to be able to meet new people. Frank, we'll go in somebody's house and they'll have a problem, and I love fixing people's problems. I love going in there. I actually enjoy it. You've got a bathroom that needs to be remodeled, or a kitchen, and it's not just because you want to do it; it's because you have to do it. And so I get to help these people take their investment and improve it and do it right and take time to do that kind of stuff. And we do all kinds of things. We do the bathroom remodels in the kitchens. We build fences. We do decks. We do a lot of different framing, and anything that you got going on, we do it. And so I'm not afraid to travel, like you kind of mentioned a couple places. We go to Jacksonville, St. Augustine, Chiefland, Lake City. I actually might be going to the Bahamas for a few months, helping the military out. We do some military projects, so we're everywhere. And I'm not a big company. It's me, and I have three guys that work for me. But we have this thing called integrity, and we enjoy doing this work for people and taking our time and making sure it's right. It just goes back to the way I was raised, and it is hard work, but it's an honest work, and I really do enjoy it, and I wouldn't trade what I do for anything else, except for maybe to be more of a part of Adopt a Cop and go fishing with Frank. any old day. Other than that, though, I really do enjoy it. It's not everybody gets to do what they love, and
It's funny you should say that about problem solving, because me and the bird dog did that for 25 years, helping people solve their problems, in their social issues, and you're doing it in the construction aspect. So how do people get a hold of you? Is there a phone number? Is there a website? Do you have a smoke signal? What do they do?
once again, 352-339-5055. You can call, text me. I respond to that, and we have a Facebook page. You can go on Green's Home Improvement. Right here in High Springs, Florida, is where we're out of my office.
Is it Greens apostrophe? How do you spell it? So
Yes,
that sometimes it's hard to find things on Facebook.
yeah, it's GREEN_S. So, yeah, we got those. Those are basically it. I kind of keep it simple for everybody. Not a million different ways to get a hold of me, just two, and they work really well. And just give us contact and tell me what problem you got, and I can either do it for you, or I can work it over the phone. I do that too. I don't mind giving buddy step by step to get it done, as long as the project's getting done and the problem is getting solved. I really don't care, as long as I'm helping somebody.
And if you use Green's Home Improvement, you will receive 10 free raffle tickets from Adopt a Cop USA for one of our incredible raffles that we have going on today. And some of
Wow.
those raffles are pretty
I
incredible.
thought you were gonna say.
What you got?
I thought you were gonna say they would receive 10 free
10
nails.
free staples.
Listen, guys, we're
Staples.
past both of those. We used T25 screws. Okay, those are. Does that?
Okay.
mean,
I
we
have
don't
no
even know
idea
what
what
we're
you're
talking
talking about.
Would you rather have a nail or a T25 screw? Oh, yeah.
Nail or screwed, either way, we're
Well,
going to
the
help you.
T25 sounds pretty special.
Is that a little edgy? Is that edgy?
That's a little iffy. We were
Okay.
we were on the edge on that one, but I think it's
Okay.
pretty entertaining. They'll remember it for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's construction talk, I guess. So
There you go. There you go. So again, give us that phone number and the website or the Facebook page, please.
all right, it's Green's Home Improvement with a GREEN_S, and my cell phone number is 352-339-5055.
Very awesome. Well, Mr. Green, we really appreciate you coming on our show tonight. I have to tell you, I had a different idea in my head, and I kind of went a different way, but I think the result is way better than what I envisioned. Bird Dog, what you say?
I say to all our millions and billions of listeners that just because you found us on our YouTube site, which is Adopt a Cop USA official site, doesn't mean that we don't have others. So if you want to really look into our program and what's going on, you can visit our website at www.aacusa.org. That's our website. It's a beautiful website. And then we have several social media platforms through Facebook for our different programs. We have our main page, which is Adopt a Cop USA official site. And you notice I keep saying official site. You got to make sure that you go to the official site one, because there's other ones out there that are a little similar, but they're not us. So then we have Sergeant Frank's Bird Dog Posse. That's where you can see about the law dog and us visiting schools. And then we have our Outdoor Crusaders, and that page is Adopt a Cop USA Outdoor Crusaders. So we have a lot of platforms, a lot of ways to get a hold of us, and you can see everything we're doing. The website's pretty much updated as much as possible. If you go to the events page, you can see everything that we're doing, because I'm pretty much on top of that.
And if you want to contact Sergeant Frank directly, my personal cell phone, the direct line, the red phone is The bat phone,
The bat phone.
try not to say bat phone too much because we have a good friend who's in the bat business, is 561-523-2110. That's 561-523-2110. Or my email address is sergeantfrank606@gmail.com. And that's SGT, like the abbreviation for sergeant. Frank, like I'll be frank with you, and 606, which was my old badge number, at gmail.com. And we look forward to hearing from. If there's a show or there's somebody that wants to be on our show, please contact us. We love to sit down with you and work it all out.
Listen, young one, it's not cool to be a thug. There is nothing good about going selling drugs. The money don't mean nothing when you're harming everyone. And you can get killed bringing pain to your mom. Take a legal substance and you can OT. Overdose from nasty chemicals in the streets. Live a happy life, you gotta keep your hands clean. And most importantly,